going to be comparing the Exorcist franchise to the Air Bud franchise. I've seen the first Air Bud movie along with at least one of the other films. There's actually a total of 14 of these movies. I did not realize there were that many until I looked it up within the past few days. This is including all the spin-offs as well as the direct-to-video movies that naturally not as many people know about. You have 6 Exorcist films. I've seen the original along with the director's cut of Exorcist Free, not any of the others. When you look at highest score for each franchise of Air Bud, out of 14 movies, only 2 of them are fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and they're only barely fresh, mind you. You got Snow Buddies, which has a 63%, and Search for Santa Claus with a 62%. 63 is the highest score. When you look at Exorcist, that first movie has the highest score of 78%. I think that's a bit low for a movie as classic and iconic as The Exorcist. I think that movie should easily have over an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, but obviously 78% is still a really good score. Exorcist wins here. When you look at the lowest score, when it comes to Air Bud, the movie Santa Buddies only has a 20%. In the case of Exorcist, the second movie, Heretic, has only an 11%. And actually, Exorcist 4 only has an 11% as well. So Air Bud's lowest score is a bit higher than the lowest score for Exorcist, so Air Bud wins here. Then we look at average score. Air Bud is an average of 49. Exorcist is an average of 35. Air Bud wins here. Then we look at gap between lowest and highest score. With Air Bud, you have a gap of 43. With Exorcist, you have a gap of 67. Air Bud gets this point, and thus right now, Air Bud has won 3 of the rounds, whereas Exorcist has won 1 of them. Thus, Air Bud is going to win this debate regardless of my personal opinion. But let's look at that now. Which franchise do I prefer? I think, of course, the original Exorcist is a fantastic movie that is great acting. It does a really good job of, at the beginning, just showing you this ordinary family. And so that makes it feel relatable. And this is the kind of family you feel like you might meet. And you see this girl Reagan, who's just a normal kid, and that makes it all the more scary what happens with Reagan later. I mean, the kind of stuff that she does, it's just so unsettling to see a child behaving in that manner, saying the kind of things that while being possessed Reagan says. Oh man, it is absolutely scary. And also the journey that Father Damien Karras goes on is really powerful. First of all, I like how the movie shows you the big contrast between Father Lancaster Marin and Damien Karras, where Marin is the older, more seasoned and experienced priest that's done this before, and thus he has more authority that he brings to this situation, whereas Damien Karras is the younger priest that's struggling with things. We see that his mom is not doing well. She's sick and actually ends up being in the hospital. Karras feels guilt about that, and we see that the demon tries to take advantage of this in order to weaken Father Karras. But what's really powerful here is that for Karras actually encountering evil directly, seeing evil face to face, is actually the thing that causes him to regain his faith. Earlier on in the movie, he says to a character, "I think I'm losing my faith." But then through this really, really stressful situation, he rediscovers that, and thus at the end of the movie, he's telling the demon, "Come in me." Now, admittedly, whether that's exactly accurate is certainly debatable, like whether demon can actually go into a person that way. But even if that's not exactly accurate, that doesn't take away from the fact that it's such a powerful moment. So that Karras is fine with this demon going inside him, but then he intentionally jumps out the window so that he'll die, and thus Reagan can actually be saved. It's powerful at the end that he's the one who performs this heroic sacrifice in order to save Reagan. When it comes to Exorcist 3, I watched the director's cut and actually really enjoyed it. I thought the way that they brought Karis back actually made sense within the lore of this franchise. It fit. I like how you have this guy's a police officer that at the beginning is just really jaded because he's seen so much darkness. He's seen the worst of people, and thus he doesn't actually have any kind of optimism at all. Whereas this priest we see actually does have optimism. And then for this police officer, he starts investigating what's going on. He's like, wait a minute, is this actually Karis? And through this experience, he actually regains some optimism, as in the end, he actually shoots Karis so that a demon can actually be defeated. It really works, I would say. Definitely works better than in the non-director's cut. When it comes to Air Bud, this is a movie that I used to own on VHS tape. I really enjoy it. It's just a fun, sweet, lighthearted, wholesome movie that's devoid of any kind of cynicism. It's just this really heartwarming story about a boy named Josh who moves to a new town with his mother. He doesn't really know how to fit in, and he's also rather shy. But through actually meeting this dog, he comes out of his shell, he gains more confidence, he becomes part of the basketball team. At first, the coach just has him help out the team, but then Josh actually ends up joining the team. I think there's some really good music that was composed for this movie. I like that at the beginning we see the dogs of this clown that's just horrible at his job. Like at the beginning, he totally embarrasses himself in front of all these people. Even by the end, the judge is so annoyed at him, like, oh, can someone please get rid of that stupid clown? Air Bud is one of these movies that I can easily rewatch. Whereas, as you can imagine, I mean, because of the heavier nature of the Exorcist films, they're not ones that I'm looking to re-explore as much. Now, in the case of Exorcist Believer that came out last year, yikes, I do not know what the heck the filmmakers were thinking there. They spectacularly failed. I mean, having an Exorcist movie that is not allowing the Catholic Church to get any kind of win is just baffling. Like, come on, guys, what are you doing here? Christianity, the Catholic Church has been a big part of these movies from the beginning. Catholic priests have always been important, and then you get this movie where it feels like the filmmakers are going in so cynical, jaded, and angry that they just make the priest out to be wimps. They can't let the Catholic Church get any kind of win. What? And then on top of that, when you have the mother from the first movie, the mother of this girl, Reagan, who was saved after 2 different priests died trying to get this demon out of her, and she says in The Exorcist Believer, oh, the 2 of them, Karis and Marin, they didn't let me in the room because of the patriarchy. And you go, guys, that makes no sense at all. Obviously, the 2 priests wouldn't allow anyone else into the room because it was dangerous. They were the only ones that were actually suited to go in the room. And also, if you can't, as a filmmaker, keep your own personal political beliefs out of this, then yikes, not a good sign at all. Now, when it comes to which franchise I prefer, I would say Air Bud is definitely the more nostalgic franchise, as you can tell, not as much of The Exorcist. But I gotta be honest here, I'm actually going to personally choose The Exorcist, because, I mean, there's 2 different movies in the Exorcist franchise that I actually think are good. In the case of Air Bud, I remember that first movie really well. Even if I have seen some of the other movies, I just don't remember them. And so it's only one of these movies I actually like. Thus, Exorcist is the one I prefer, but Air Bud's going to win this debate. Well, that'll be it for this video.